many people in the press and politics are questioning the validity of capitalism. What can you say to them that might prompt them to take a look at capitalism more favorably?
Well, the market system works wonders, and it's also brutal if left entirely to itself. And we wouldn't be the country we are if the market system hadn't been allowed to function. And to some extent, you can say that other countries around the world that have improved their way of life dramatically, to some extent, have copied us. So the market system is marvelous in many respects, but it needs government. And it is creative destruction, but for the ones who are destroyed, it can be a very brutal game, and for the people who work in the industries and all of that sort of thing. So I do not want to come up with anything different than capitalism, but I certainly do not want unfettered capitalism, and I don't think we'll move away from it, but I think we capitalists, I'm one of them, I think there's a lot of thought that should be given to what would happen if we all drew straws again for particular market-based skills. It's somewhere way back, somebody invented television. I don't know who it was, and then they invented cable, then they invented pay systems and all of that. And so a fellow that could bat .406 in 1941 was worth $20,000 a year, and now a marginal big leaguer, will make vastly greater sums because, in effect, the stadium size was increased from 30 or 40 or 50,000 people to the country. And the market system, capitalism, took over. And it's very uneven. And incidentally, I think that Ted Williams is worth a whole lot more money than I've ever should make. But the market system can work toward a winner-takes-all type situation, and we don't want to discourage people from working hard and thinking hard. But that alone doesn't do it. There is a lot of randomness in the capitalist system, including inherited wealth, and I think we can keep the best parts of a market system and capitalism, and we can do a better job of making sure that everybody participates in the prosperity that produces. Greg?
Yeah. No, I think it's always keeping the best parts of it. And I even think if we look at the current environment we're in, i.e. in the pandemic, and we have to do it only when we can do it properly and reemerge. But in some ways, the best opportunity for people is when we're back working, clearly, and that the system's functioning again. But that's the obvious. And then there's, as Warren, you've highlighted, there's a lot of imperfections, but it's still it's definitely the best model out there that just needs some fine tuning. And
Becky, at the end, I would just
Warren,
I would just say that oh, sure,
go
ahead.
Can I just slip in one more quick question?
Absolutely.
I forgot this one. Someone sent it in earlier. Thanks. Anderson Haxton wrote in. He said, Warren mentioned that Ben Graham is one of the 3 smartest people he's ever met. I'd like to ask him the names of the other 2.
Well, I may not be one of the smartest, but I'm smart enough not to name the other 2. I'd make 2 people happy. But I would. It isn't. Ben Graham is one of the 3 smartest people, and I've known some really smart people. Smartness is not necessarily does not necessarily equate to wisdom either. And Ben Graham, one of the things he said he liked to do every day was he wanted to do something creative, something generous, and something foolish. And He said he was pretty good at the latter, but he was pretty good. He was amazing, actually, at the creating. But it's interesting that IQ does not always translate into rationality and behavioral success or wisdom. And so I know some people that are extraordinarily wise that would not be in the top 3 on an IQ test. But if I wanted their judgment on some matter, even if I want to put them in a position of responsibility someplace, I might prefer them to we'll say one of the 3. That'll leave the other 2 feeling fine of the 3.
Our question for both of you is, outside of Berkshire Hathaway, what is the most interesting or fun personal investment you have ever made?
Well, they're always more fun when you make a lot of money off of them. Well, one time I bought 1 share of stock in the Atled Corp. That's spelled A-T-L-E-D. And Atled had 98 shares outstanding, and I bought 1. And not what you call a liquid security. And Atled happened to be the word Delta spelled backwards. And 100 guys in St. Louis had each chipped in $50 or $100 or something to form a duck club in Louisiana. And they bought some land down there. 2 guys didn't come up with it. There were 100 of them. 2 of them defaulted on their obligation to come up with $100. So there were 98 shares out. And they went down to Louisiana, and they shot some ducks, but apparently somebody fired a few shots into the ground, and oil spurted out, and those Delta Duck Club shares, and I think the Delta Duck Club field is still producing. I bought stock in it 40 years ago for $29,200 a share, and it had that amount in cash, and it was producing a lot, and they sold it. If they kept it, that stock might have been worth $2 or $3 million a share, but they sold out to another oil company. But that was certainly that was the most interesting thing. Actually, I didn't have any cash at the time, and I went down and borrowed the money, and I bought it for my wife, and I borrowed the money, and the loan officer said, "Would you like to borrow some money to buy a shotgun as well?" Charlie, tell them about the one you missed.
Well, I have 2 investments that come to mind. When I was young and poor, I spent $1,000 once buying an oil royalty that paid me $100,000 a year for a great many years. But I only did that once in a lifetime. On a later occasion, I bought a few shares of Elridge Oil, which went up 30 times rather quickly, but I turned down 5 times as much as I bought. It was the dumbest decision of my whole life. So if any of you have made any dumb decisions, look up here and feel good about yourselves.
Yeah. I could add a few, but Andrew?
Warren and Charlie, this is a question. Actually, we got a handful of questions on this topic. This is probably the best formulation of it. Warren, you have been a long-time outspoken Democrat. With all the talk about socialism versus capitalism taking place among Democratic presidential candidates, do you anticipate an impact on Berkshire in the form of more regulations, higher corporate taxes, or even calls for breakups among the many companies we own if they were to win? And how do you think about your own politics as a fiduciary of our company, and at the same time as someone who has said that simply being a business leader doesn't mean you've put your citizenship in a blind trust?
Yeah, I have said that you do not put your citizenship in a blind trust, but you also don't speak on behalf of your company. You do speak as a citizen if you speak, and therefore you have to be careful about when you do speak because it's going to be assumed you're speaking on behalf of your company. Berkshire Hathaway certainly in 54 years has never and will never made a contribution to a presidential candidate. I don't think we've made a contribution to any political candidate, but I don't want to say for 54 years that we don't do it now. We operate in several regulated industries, and our railroad and our utility, as a practical matter, they have to have a presence in Washington and in the state legislatures in which they operate. So we have a few, I don't know how many, political action committees which existed when we bought it. We bought the companies at subsidiaries, and I think that unquestionably they make some contributions simply to achieve the same access as their competitors. I mean, if the trucking industry is going to lobby, I'm sure the railroad industry is going to lobby. But the rule is, I mean, that people do not pursue their own political interests with your money here. We've had one or two managers over the years, for example, that would do some fundraising where they were fundraising from people who were suppliers to them or something of the sort. And if I ever find out about it, that ends promptly. But my position at Berkshire is not to be used to further my own political beliefs, but my own political beliefs can be expressed as a person, not as a representative of Berkshire, when a campaign is important. I try to minimize it, but it's no secret that in the last election, for example, I raised money. I won't give money to PACs. I accidentally did it one time. I didn't know it was a PAC, but I don't do it. But I've raised substantial sums. I don't like the way money is used in politics. I've written op-ed pieces for the New York Times in the past on the influence of money in politics. I spent some time with John McCain many years ago, before McCain-Feingold, and on ways to try to limit it, but the world has developed in a different way. On your question about I will just say I'm a card-carrying capitalist, but I believe we wouldn't be sitting here except for the market system and the rule of law and some things that are embodied in this country. So you don't have to worry about me changing in that manner, but I also think that capitalism does involve regulation. It involves taking care of people who are left behind, particularly when the country gets enormously prosperous. But beyond that, I have no Berkshire podium for pushing anything. Charlie?
Well, I think we're all in favor of some kind of a government social safety net in a country as prosperous as ours. What a lot of us don't like is the vast stupidity with which parts of that social safety net are managed by the government. It'd be much better if we could do it more wisely. But I think it also might be better if we did it more liberally.
Yeah, one of the reasons we're involved in this effort, along with J.P. Morgan and Amazon, with Jamie Dimon and Jeff Bezos, on the medical question, is we do have as much money going, 3.3 or 3.4 trillion. We have as much money going to medical care as we have funding the federal government, and it's gone from 5 to 17% or 18%, while actually the amount going to the federal government has stayed about the same at 17%. So we hope there's some major improvements from the private sector, because I generally think the private sector does a better job than the public sector in most things. But I also think that if the private sector doesn't do something, you'll get a different sort of answer. And I like to think that the private sector can come up with a better answer than the public sector in that respect. But I will probably, it depends who's nominated, but I voted for plenty of Republicans over the years. I even ran for delegate to the Republican National Convention in 1960. But we are not. I don't think the country will go into socialism in 2020 or in 2040 or 2060.